There's been mixed reaction to President Cyril Ramaphosa's announcement that the army will be deployed to gang-hit areas in the Western Cape. The Cape Flats is no stranger to military boots on the ground, with a similar deployment having taken place back in 2019 when there was a surge in gang-related killings. Newzroom Afrika's stabilising filed this report.
Children here in the Western Cape are caught in the crossfire of gang wars.
For some, the announcement brings hope. For others, it raises hard questions. The Cape Flats has seen army deployment before in 2019. Soldiers were sent in after a spike in gang violence and murders. Now, once again, the South African National Defence Force is set to assist police in communities long plagued by shootings and criminal networks. But not everyone is convinced this will bring lasting change.
Most people will welcome the deployment of the South African Army, but we also think that it's almost not too late. It's too late for a number of young people who died on our streets, innocent young people. But also it feels more like a political ploy to be exact. We feel that they've waited to deploy the army based on how close we're getting to the election. So it's almost like as people we feel more like pawns in the hands of our ruling party than citizens that's being loved and cared for by their government.
Some argue that while the deployment may offer temporary relief, it signals that police have not been able to fulfill their core mandate.
No, it's not. I think the extra boots on the ground might help initially, but our past experience with the Army's deployment is that it fades out very quickly, and then it's business as usual for the gangs and crime. So we'll see an initial impact, but it's not a sustainable solution. Those pockets within our communities that are completely lawless and taking control of those areas that is being governed by gangs and criminals and taking back our streets in that way. And maybe there might be a role for the army on an ad hoc basis to come in, but we don't want to militarize crime to the extent that we're using the army internally. We should have capacity within our police and within our local structures.
Others say any intervention must go beyond the bounds of crime fighting.
Until such time those things are not being addressed, we will find crime and criminality, because our people are... The city is a city of two tales. You have the rich and the poor, and on the Cape Flats is the poor, so they fed for their livelihood on the Cape Flats, and that shouldn't happen. That we should also be part of the broader Cape Town. I'm also asking SANDF to enhance our skills of our SAPS members.
As government finalizes plans for the deployment, residents say success will not be measured by the number of soldiers on the street, but by whether safety remains after the army leaves. For Newzroom Afrika on Channel 405, I'm stabilising in Cape Town.
All right, let's stay with this theme and get more clarity on the deployment of the army to Gauteng and the Western Cape. We're joined now by Deputy Defence Minister Bantu Holomisa. Deputy Minister, good to have you on the program this evening. So to start us off, the Constitution does allow the SANDF to support the police in maintaining law and order. But let's speak more about this. What specific capability gaps, especially in SAPS, have triggered this decision? Is it intelligence, manpower, or specialized operations? And how is SANDF filling these gaps?
Thank you very much for inviting me to participate in this important debate. Your questions might have helped the president to declare that he is going to deploy soldiers to help the police. So I'm not privy to the details of intelligence, which the police responsible for crime might be having. But what I'm sure of is that the Department of Defense, when we got this message, we are ready to deploy, but we depend on the police service to tell us which areas would they like our assistance to be in that area. Having said that, this is not going to be a long-term exercise. It might be 3 to 6 months. But what we should be doing is to apply what I would call a concurrent activities. The police must do their work together with the defense. However, the criminal, the crime intelligence, as well as the military intelligence, and also the state security agency must brief the commanders of the SANDF as to what is the cause of this. It's not going to work for us to chase people who are unemployed there, who are drinking and smoking nyaupes and so on. Who is bringing drugs in South Africa? Which routes are being used for that? Because these gangs are fighting over the control of the clients of supplying drugs. But where are they coming from? And if there are people in South Africa who are manufacturing these drugs, like we heard recently that there were Mexican communities who were running or having a factory, that intelligence, it's time that we must be briefed about it by the police and state security agents. Our role, as you know, it has never been to be policemen. But we cannot just deploy troops in an area without having briefed them as to what is the main objective of them being there, what they should be looking at. Are the kingpins of these drugs living in the townships and so on, or in the informal settlement, or they are living in areas like Thames Bay and waterfront and so on. So this is not a child's play, and we want intelligence, proper intelligence. If they don't cooperate, we may have to intervene and ask for Interpol to tell us who in South Africa is receiving these drugs and distributing them.
Yeah. General, from what I understand, you do anticipate that this will be a short-term deployment. You mentioned a period of 3 to 5 months. But as we better understand what this deployment will be about, what safeguards are in place, especially to ensure a strict adherence to the rules of engagement, especially given that soldiers are trained for combat and not civilian policing?
Now, relax on that. Don't worry about that. We have assisted police from time immemorial. Even myself, when I was in charge of Transkei government, we knew that if the police request our assistance, the rules are clear. We don't arrest or manhandle criminals or suspects, but the defense is always there to support the police. They have warrants of arrest. But if, for instance, we have identified a certain area as a hotspot, then we would assist police. They want a cordoning off, depending on the assessment of the intelligence on the ground. For instance, we know when we go to the mining in Gauteng, it's not a child's play. You see those boys there from neighboring countries. They carry big guns. So that's why I was pleading earlier on to say, please, don't point any firearm to our soldiers. We are not at war here, but we are just assisting in maintaining law and order. And I hope those trigger-happy guys would have listened to what we are saying.
Right. General, illegal mining, as you mentioned, and gang violence are deeply organized, but also these are financially structured crimes as well. So let's speak more about this. Is SANDF's role tactical on the streets, or is there an intelligence-led component coordinated across departments as well?
Well, right now we are going to establish joint operation centers in the Western Cape as well as in the hotspots in the mining areas. It's only then that we will be getting a hardcore intelligence. And also, given that the president has given us an order or a directive that defense is going to be involved, we've already dispatched our officers and in particular military intelligence to do their own assessment, because we wouldn't risk to deploy our soldiers without having hardcore intelligence. Because it's important that the soldiers themselves, they are safe first and foremost. And then we then going to allow the police to lead us. But the communities which have been displaced by those gangsters, including those who have no permits to be in South Africa, must be assured that they will be returned back home immediately once the situation is stabilized. And we are not going to nurse anybody's feelings.
As we are having this conversation, General, Ekurhuleni Metro Police have been deployed to an area near Gugulethu informal settlement in Springs, where we understand that illegal mining activities are taking place. Have you observed happenings there, and can we anticipate to possibly have boots on the ground in that area?
You see, this announcement by the president is not, in my own opinion, is going to only end up focusing on Western Cape and mining areas in the western area areas or West Rand. But you'll find that in Mpumalanga, there are people are complaining already that there are nationals who are, or people who are terrorizing them. So we have to analyze the issue of security in South Africa holistically. There are those who are in the rural areas who don't have police stations nearby, and even if they call for a police, the police will take a day or 2 days before they can arrive. And also in the townships, you will find that if the people have made a request for ambulance, for instance, the people who drive ambulances are unable to reach their destinations because their ambulances are hijacked. Or we have to clamp down on this lawlessness. And but in order to do so, we would need cooperation from the people. Therefore, the areas you are mentioning, like Ekurhuleni and other areas, stock theft and so on, and other construction mafias who are literally undermining the projects which were destined or designed to improve the quality of lives of South Africans. So we have to intervene in those areas. So I foresee, therefore, that what President Cyril Ramaphosa announced is the clarion call which we made to him during Lekgotla meetings of last year and also early this year, as well as the concern which was expressed by the leaders or in the GNU, leaders of political parties in GNU, to say, let us prioritize the issue of security, because if we want the investors to come to South Africa, they will come if they see that there's an improvement. But currently, we cannot guarantee, because everyone has got a gun in the street. There are uncontrolled massacres which are taking place. So once we deploy those troops and then we keep on informing people in the public arenas, I'm sure at least we will reduce the crime levels.
Yeah.
But all we are asking is cooperation between the police, defense, personnel, and the public. And also those who come to South Africa without permit and then they don't obey the laws of South Africa, we're going to have problems with them. If you are in South Africa, whether you are here legally or illegally, please understand that there are laws in this country. You can't claim that you are a refugee and then we give you a shelter. The next thing you commit crime, you hijack vehicles in South Africa, you hijack buildings, and then when we chase you, then you just run across the board, and you are not even registered in the Home Affairs. That honeymoon is over.
You say that honeymoon is over, but as you know, General, South Africans want results, and they want it now. Maybe let's speak timelines here. What are the measurable indicators of success? You know, is it reduced murder rates, arrests, disruption of these syndicates, or even the seizure of dangerous weapons? And over what time frame should the public then expect some results to this intervention?
Well, as a soldier, I'm a disciplined, I'm one of the disciplined soldiers in this country I've ever had. Once a commander or commander-in-chief has issued an instruction, already the Defense Force is doing its own part, so that when we receive requests from the police, we are ready. As I said, we are more or less ready. Our troops or intelligence, military intelligence is on the ground, assessing the situation where we are going to be deployed to make sure that our troops are safe in the first instance. Secondly, to answer your question, it's a loaded question because you have raised a number of issues. So this is the responsibility of the cluster, security cluster, which briefed the president last year. I was part of that. And early this year, during the Lekgotla, and also in our summit as leaders of the GNU, to say the crime is found everywhere. Whether you talk private sector, the public service, we have to draw a line. And I was happy that the president has listened to us. So we have to go out there and say, let us meet in a joint operations or a crisis center for each province and make sure that the requirements or the calls to deploy people or crack on crime is received immediately at national level.
General, but how do we prevent similar issues around mission creep, where temporary deployments become a long-term military presence, especially in civilian areas?
Well, unfortunately, it depends on the threat and whether we are succeeding in quelling this crime setup. But the long term would be to make sure that those who are arrested, they are tried immediately. So the NPA and Department of Justice must also come on board and assist us. But on the other hand, we may have to look at making sure that the responsibility of guarding government institutions, buildings, you know, the railway lines are being stripped here every night and now and again. And you can see that the culture of ownership is zero amongst the South Africans who are involved in those crimes. Others, they assist the people from outside. So that culture of ownership has to be restored in order to get more intelligence and information. But at the end of the day, South Africa must look at a two-pronged strategy approach. You are fighting corruption and crime, but some of the duties which we are now being assigned to the police could have been done by a national key points security force. That's an opportunity then that Defence Force can offer training to that national key point security personnel and make sure that you say, let's phase out Defence Force to guard on guarding the institutions like ESCOM.
Yeah.
Let's put national key points, trained people to take over and monitor and guard the railway stations of South Africa. Let's make sure that we have a national key points to guard project. We're spending billions of rands, for instance, on N2 in the Eastern Cape, around Mzamba and all those areas, building highest bridges. And then the construction mafia comes and disrupt that area. Those billions are going to be wasted. We are building dams all over South Africa. But if we have a dedicated unit of national key points, in that way we would have created jobs for many young people.
Right. So, General, the SANDF's primary constitutional role is defense against external threats. How do we then ensure this domestic deployment does not dilute the readiness or overstretch already constrained resources that we're seeing?
Unfortunately, my friend, we can't compromise our internal security at the expense of theorizing, keeping soldiers in the barracks waiting for a war which you don't know when will it come or when will we deploy troops outside. There's a crisis now. And you know that even the Matlanga Commission is creating another uncertainty on the strength and the caliber and qualifications of the generals we have in the police force. And we normally like to copy policies which don't suit us. For instance, by having civilian oversight to do oversight over the police and the defense force, it was a good concept. But when you deploy people who have no clue about the profession of policing and the military, and then you impose those people on top of the highly trained policemen and the army, it doesn't make sense. But this civilian oversight, if it's in parliament or is contained only to work with the Minister of Police or Defense, but not to expect them that they are going to tell soldiers and the trained police what to do. The danger also, we must remember that some of these people were appointed politically. These were political deployees. And look what chaos is there now. Others know nothing about police, but they occupied high positions just because they wear uniform, calling themselves generals. This is nonsense. It must be addressed as of yesterday.
General, a clarity-seeking question. How will the command work on the ground? Does operational authority lie with the SAPs, or is it a joint command, or just the military here?
No, the police takes precedence. This is their operation. We are there to assist them. So if we have a joint operations, for instance, for Western Cape area, then that meeting would be chaired by the police. And then they will detail as to what role, what assistance do they need from the army. And then the army will say, according to our assessment, the main threat here is in this area and so on. They will compare notes, but at the end of the day, when we have to account to Parliament and account to the Commander-in-Chief, the President, and the Cabinet, the police, which must, police department or Minister of Police, who must coordinate that report. So we are under the command of the police. We are not, it's not a joint leadership. So we are clear about that.
Right. Thanks a lot, General. Deputy Minister Bantu Holomisa, thanking him for engaging with us tonight on what is a significant constitutional and security decision as well. South Africans are looking not just for visible enforcement, but for measurable impact and long-term stability as well in our communities. We do appreciate his time and clarity on how this deployment will achieve that balance as well.